Good evening. Thanks for joining us on Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty close in the red despite a late recovery. The Sensex down over 400 points. The Nifty holds above 25,800. Mid-caps outperform the blue chips today. IndiGo's daily flight cancellations at 400 compared to 500 yesterday. The airline CEO says operations are stable and the airline is back on its feet. The aviation regulator cuts IndiGo's flights by 5% or around 115 flights daily. The aviation minister tells Parliament IndiGo is being held accountable.
Tell me about India. Why is India allowed to do that? They have to pay tariffs. Do they have an exemption on rice?
No, sir. We're still working on their trade deal.
Yeah, but they should be done.
President Trump hints at additional tariffs on rice exported from other nations, including India, says that he will take care of the alleged dumping. The U.S. is the fourth largest market for Indian basmati rice. President Trump allows Nvidia to sell high-end AI chips to China. The U.S. government will get a 25% cut in yet another unusual agreement with the private company. Nvidia is already paying a 15% cut to the U.S. for selling a low-performing chip in China. Vietnamese electric vehicle maker VinFast pledges to invest $3 billion in Telangana, plans to develop a multi-sector ecosystem, including a smart city for 2 lakh residents. This is VinFast's second investment in India after committing $2 billion in Tamil Nadu. Danish pharma giant Novo Nordisk escalates its patent war in India, moves the Delhi High Court to restrict Sun Pharma from launching its generic version of semaglutide, a drug widely prescribed for diabetes and weight loss. The patent battle brews as weight loss medicine sales cross 1,000 crore rupees in just the last 6 months. President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner is part of the consortium led by Paramount, which has launched a hostile takeover attempt for Warner Brothers Discovery. Sovereign wealth funds from Saudi, Qatar and Abu Dhabi are also funding Paramount. The Warner Brothers board have agreed to sell the company to Netflix for $72 billion. Well, as always, let's start with the day's market action. A volatile day on the Lal Street, where we saw the markets end sharply off their intraday lows. The Sensex and the Nifty ending nearly 0.5% lower, with the Nifty managing to hold above 25,800. 400 gone on the Sensex. Finally, at close, the Nifty Bank closing flat and the mid-cap index actually closing in positive territory today. 30 stocks on the Nifty closed lower despite the recovery that we saw coming in. The broader market, as I pointed out, outperformed, helping the market breadth in favour of the advances. Financials recovered from the lows of the day, with the Nifty Bank ending flat. Realty and PSU Bank stocks were the top gainers in trade. But let's go straight to the top story this evening. IndiGo CEO Peter Elber says their operations, quote-unquote, are stable and the airline, quote-unquote, is back on its feet. This even as over 400 IndiGo flights were cancelled across the country today. However, the number of cancellations are lower than the last few days. Over 500 flights were cancelled yesterday. The aviation regulator has cut the airline's winter schedule by 5%. That's about 150 flights daily. This comes after disruption in IndiGo's operations, which saw over 6,000 flights being cancelled in a week, leaving nearly 9 lakh passengers stranded across airports. Now, the DGCA, the regulator, has asked the airline to submit a revised schedule by tomorrow. Speaking in the Rajya Sabha today, the Civil Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu said that no airline, however large, will be permitted to cause hardship to passengers.
Going forward, the government is determined to build a more robust and competitive aviation ecosystem. Through our policies, we are encouraging more new airlines to start and operate in India, ensuring fair access to airport capacity and eliminating any possibility of duopoly, controlling connectivity and pricing in our skies. More airlines mean more choice, more affordability and more resilience for the passengers. Operations are stabilizing fast. Safety remains fully in force. IndiGo is being held accountable. Passengers' convenience and dignity are being protected, and long-term measures are underway to make India's aviation sector stronger and more passenger-centric.
IndiGo is back on its feet and our operations are stable. On December 5th, we could only fly 700 flights. Thereafter, gradually yet steadily improving to 1,500 on 6th, 1,650 on 7th, 1,800 yesterday, and today more than 1,800. As of yesterday, we are back of flying to all our 138 destinations in our network, and our on-time performance has also been normalized.
Well, that's IndiGo's CEO Peter Elbers there on the stabilization of operations. Our colleague Shivani Bazaz, who's been tracking the story, joins us now with details on the DGCA's directive to IndiGo Airlines. Shivani, 5% being cut by the DGCA as far as the winter schedule for IndiGo is concerned. But let's just take our viewers through the numbers. How many flights was IndiGo cleared to fly, and what was it actually flying as part of the winter schedule?
Well, Shireen, absolutely. 5% cut is what the regulator has asked IndiGo to do immediately in the month of December. And IndiGo has been asked to submit a new winter schedule by tomorrow, that is 10th of December. Now, let's look at the numbers. In November, the scheduled flights that IndiGo had proposed for the month of November were around 64,000. And out of them, 951 were cancelled, and which is the basis for DGCA saying that your operations were not up to mark. 951 cancellations is a lot. So now 5% hit is not on their regular operations of 2100 to 2200 flights a day, which was the summer schedule. On that, IndiGo had asked for a 6% hike in terms of winter schedule, which means they were supposed to fly around 2200 to 2300 flights, 2250 to 2330. And by that logic, a 5% hit on that number would bring the total operations, daily operations, down by 110 to 115 flights. So that is where we stand right now. But today, as you also mentioned, Peter Elbers has said that today the number of cancellations stood at 400, which is 100 lower than yesterday, which was at 500. And IndiGo has said that now all the flights that are shown on websites, on their app, will fly, and 72 hours earlier, all passengers will be, told if their flights are cancelled. In terms of baggage, 9,000 bags were missing when all of these disruptions started in the 1 week that the disruptions continued, and 8,500 bags have been returned, 500 still to go. So that is where we stand right now. IndiGo has been asked to cut 5% of it, and this is not the end of it. Sources have also told us that DGCA will monitor this after the 5% curtailment, and they'll come back with another decision. Whether or not, that depends on how IndiGo manages this winter schedule operations from here on.
Shivani, very, very quickly, while the DGCA has cut IndiGo's capacity by 5%, do other airlines have the capacity to pick up and offset what IndiGo loses?
Well, Shireen, that is a tricky part. Even though a lot of airlines, including SpiceJet, Air India, have been flying more than what they were scheduled to, like yesterday on 8th of December, Air India flew 12 more flights on their regular routes where IndiGo used to fly their aircrafts. And even SpiceJet has been announcing that they are increasing capacity, but that is a very daily, day-to-day routine and scheduling thing. Airline sources have told us that to give a blanket 2% or 3% hike on their capacity is not feasible. It's not possible for them because they also have a busy winter schedule lined up. So that kind of blanket increase in the capacity and to match what IndiGo is seeing a curtailment in right now seems a little off the charts and doesn't seem very viable. But that's what we have right now. We'll see how airlines will build capacity because they have numbered aircraft and pilots to meet this demand in winter. So right now it seems a little unviable that the entire capacity and demand generated by the curtailment of IndiGo will be met by the other airlines.
Yes, there is a capacity problem at other airlines as well. Shivani, many thanks for joining us. But what really caused the crisis is IndiGo. Now, this is what we've been trying to piece together for a good part of the last week. Was there a shortage of pilots? What else happened? Madiha is standing by to analyse based on IndiGo's manpower data. Madiha, what do the airline numbers say in terms of manpower and what led to this crisis?
The story really begins with IndiGo's own numbers, Shireen, because on paper, nothing suggests an airline on the brink of a meltdown. Let's look at IndiGo's manpower and operations for November. 344 aircraft were in operation and 4,455 pilots were available. And 59,438 flights were operated in that single month. Now, if you break that down, 59,438 flights a month is about 1980 flights a day. Divide that with 344 aircraft and IndiGo is operating 5 to 6 flights per aircraft per day, which is entirely normal and healthy for IndiGo's network. Even in its submission to the DGCA, IndiGo said that the shortage was only 65 commanders and that it actually had a surplus of 42 first officers. So officially, nothing here signals a crisis. But that is where the numbers stop telling the full story. Because what sources inside IndiGo are now telling CNBC-TV18 is very different. They say that the real issue was poor manpower planning for the new FDTL Phase 2 norms. This is exactly what IndiGo has also told the DGCA, that it was misjudgment on their part. So the operations team believed, is what sources tell us, it could manage without adding new pilots, even though the new rules demanded more rest for crew and reduced the number of night duties. So when Phase 2 kicked in, pilots started hitting their FDTL limits much faster. More pilots began reporting fatigue, which legally forced the airline to give them extended rest. This meant that even though IndiGo had enough pilots on paper, it did not have enough pilots available for flying on any given day. Then came an unexpected complication, the wedding season. Because of extremely high hotel occupancy, crew could not get rest accommodations at several outstations. And that led to pilots being stranded, aircraft being out of position, and crews missing their next assigned flight. And that's where the domino effect kicked in. Delays in morning rolled into bigger delays through the afternoon. Rotations collapsed and the entire flight sequences had to be cancelled because pilots simply could not legally operate them. So what we are seeing here is a classic cascading system failure, manpower miscalculation, tighter rest norms, fatigue reporting, hotel shortages and stranded crew, all colliding at the same time. Now, IndiGo may have had only a 65 commander shortage on paper, but operationally the airline ran out of usable pilots and the system collapsed under its own weight.
Many thanks, Madiha. And of course, this is at this point in time diagnosis that we're picking up of what transpired at IndiGo on the back of sources. There is, of course, a 4-member committee that's been set up to look into this. IndiGo's CEO and CEO will be summoned and will depose before that committee, as will the IndiGo board at some point respond perhaps to the government as well. Now, a delegation from the US will be in India this week for trade talks. Both sides are looking at finalizing a framework agreement by year-end. And ahead of that, President Donald Trump has hinted that he might impose additional tariffs on rice imported into the country. Trump questioned why India was allowed to quote-unquote dump large quantities of rice into the American market without facing additional duties. The remarks came during a White House meeting where Trump announced a $12 billion support package for American farmers. However, Indian rice exporters believe that Trump's possible move might not have a major impact in demand for rice. Take a look.
Tell me about India. Why is India allowed to do that? They have to pay tariffs. Do they have an exemption on rice?
No, sir. We're still working on their trade deal. So
Yeah, but they should be dumping. I mean, I heard that from others. So you can't do that.
They bought the largest brands at retail too, right? So they have an incentive to subsidize their products so that they can keep it on the shelf.
Yeah, who did that?
The Indians own the 2 largest brands.
All right, then we'll take care of it.
And speaking of President Trump, the US president has cleared the way for Nvidia to sell chips to China. The tech giant will now ship its H200 artificial intelligence chips to approved customers in China. However, the Trump administration will get a 25% cut of all chip sales as part of the deal, which is unusual for the US government. Nvidia already paying a 15% cut to the US for selling a low-performing chip in China. In a post on social media, President Trump said the Chinese President Xi responded positively to that proposal. Now, Vietnamese auto major VinFast has inked a deal with the Telangana government for a proposed $3 billion investment in the state. Shilpa joins us now with more. Shilpa, take us through what VinFast has planned for Telangana.
Well, the Vietnamese conglomerate has committed this $3 billion in a phased manner in the state of Telangana, and it is laying out a multi-sector blueprint. Now, this spans mobility, urban infrastructure, tourism, and green energy. To be sure, it's not actually just a manufacturing facility like we usually see with these kind of announcements. The proposed investment includes, firstly, a plan to introduce India's first large-scale electric taxi fleet and mobility as a platform using VinFast vehicles. And it may also explore EV manufacturing down the line. On the urban infrastructure front, it plans to build a 1,080-hectare Vin Home Smart City, and this will be designed for nearly 2 lakh residents and is expected to create 10,000 jobs. Now, the group also plans social infrastructure, including K-2, K-12 system schools, international hospitals, and also charging stations across 70 hectares to support its plan with the fleet. Now, tourism also has gotten a major push here, with Win Wonders, one of its group companies, proposing a 350-hectare theme park, which will include zoo, safari, and amusement park, and a lot more. And it also plans to build a 500-megawatt solar farm to power the urban areas and the mobility network that it has planned. Now, in return, the Telangana government has committed fast-track support through land identification, allocation. It has also offered planning coordination and is enabling infrastructure around these investments and also incentives in line with existing policies. Now, for Win Group, which entered India recently through VinFast EV plant in Tamil Nadu, this marks a major escalation of its ambitions in the country. To be sure, like I said, its current plans for Telangana don't actually involve manufacturing anything per se, but it marks an expansion into the other sectors in the country. And this announcement was made on the sidelines of the Telangana Rising Global Summit, which is currently underway, which has so far seen investment commitments of over 2.34 lakh rupees in the state, and this includes a 1 lakh crore investment intent announced by Trump media as well in the state's upcoming Bharat Future City. Back to you.
All right, Shilpa, many thanks for joining us. We'll take a break, but up next, Danish pharma giant Novo Nordisk escalates its patent war in India over its blockbuster weight loss drug. That and more when we return.
"26 years of CNBC-TV18.
Danish pharma giant Novo Nordisk has escalated the patent war in India. It's moved the Delhi High Court to restrict Sun Pharma from launching its generic version of semaglutide, the drug widely prescribed for diabetes and weight loss. Ashmi joins us now with more. Ashmi, tell us more about Novo Nordisk's petition.
Well, a keenly watched battle this as far as the Indian generic makers are concerned. For now, Novo Nordisk knocking on the doors of the Delhi High Court, asking to restrain Sun Pharma from dealing in any shape or form from semaglutide, which is, of course, the active pharmaceutical ingredient behind their blockbuster weight loss drug and a diabetes type 2 drug, Ozempic. Now, what's important at this time is that the patents, there are 2 patents in question as far as Novo Nordisk is concerned. One patent expired in September of 2024. The other is due to expire in March of 2026, which in fact has led to a lot of excitement within Indian generic makers from entering this market. Now, what's important is that just in the latest quarterly earnings, Sun Pharma had talked about how this is a market that they're excited about, that they want to enter, and hence we now have this petition, Novo Nordisk, knocking on the doors of the Delhi High Court. The High Court will be taking up this petition tomorrow. But what is equally important is that just last week, Novo Nordisk had suffered a setback, a legal setback, again at the Delhi High Court, when the High Court had allowed Dr. Reddy's, which is already making generics of Ozempic, to export it to markets overseas. Now, that is a setback that Novo Nordisk had suffered. They're in the process of challenging that, and now they're making a fresh application before the Delhi High Court against Sun Pharma. But bear in mind that this is an opportunity that would be available. The patents are due to expire in March of 2026. And with that happening, these are not the only 2 companies. The likes of Mankind Pharma, the likes of Cipla will also be looking for opportunities. So clearly a case that is fit for a tough legal dispute, that is set for a tough legal dispute. The Delhi High Court likely to give clarity tomorrow when it takes up Novo Nordisk's application.
All right, Ashwin, many thanks for joining us. And staying with that, India's rising appetite for weight loss drugs has pushed sales to over 1,000 crore rupees in just 6 months since launch. Eli Lilly's Mounjaro leads the race, but others are catching up. Ekta's here with more. Ekta, already the 1,000 crore rupee mark crossed.
Well, yes, weight loss drugs continue to reshape India's pharmaceutical landscape, driving some of the highest monthly brand sales in the market. According to data from Pharma Track, the segment now valued at over 1,000 crores, powered largely by the 2 injectable weight loss and diabetes drugs, Novo Nordisk's Wegovy and Eli Lilly's Mounjaro. A sharp mid-November price cut has significantly boosted demand for Wegovy, though Mounjaro continues to dominate the category according to the latest Pharma track data. Now, Wegovy, which is launched in June 2025, saw its prices reduced by 30 to 35%, bringing the per dose cost down to 2,700 to 4,100 compared to 4,000 to 6,000 rupees earlier. The response, it seems, was immediate. Monthly volumes have risen over 70% from 26,000 units in October to 45,000 units in November, with market share rising by around 5%. Despite this momentum, Mounjaro remains the clear market leader. Introduced in March 2025, it retains an 86% share of the weight loss drug or GLP-1 drug segment. In November, the drug recorded around 108 crores in terms of sales, becoming the highest selling brand in the Indian pharma market, ahead of the long-standing leaders such as Augmentin. Now, since the launch, Mounjaro has generated around 500 crores, with volume surging from 25,000 units per month to 2.86 lakh units in November. Regional data highlights the scale of the weight loss drug surge as well. Mumbai reported a 297% year-on-year increase in November, with Maharashtra contributing 24% of national sales. Delhi and Haryana saw a 172% year-on-year rise, reflecting broad-based demand growth.
All right, Ekta, many thanks for joining us. That's the latest. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this special broadcast. Thanks very much for watching Business 360. The news will continue on CNBC-TV18. We're back in a moment with more.
"26 years of CNBC